Hello, everybody. Welcome all to Cisilion Live this week. My name is Iqbal Javed, and I head up our modern workplace here at Cisilion. I'm delighted to have Mark Needham, who's Cisco's Webex and Workplace Transformation Manager, joining me for today's session. Now, today we'll be focusing on the future of work, but we'll be discussing how we're seeing organizations make this transition, how they made this transition over the last 6 months. Where at the start of this pandemic, it was all about survival and enabling technology to meet the immediate need for organizations to be able to carry on and continue. We then quickly moved on to what we call the revival phase, where actually organizations and users realize the positive benefits of introducing collaborative technology like Webex and seeing how that brought a positive and made our lives more productive. So again, kind of moving on from that, what comes next? Well, now we're seeing organizations looking at how we can safely enable the workplace for our users as we all look to return to work at some point. And this is where Mark will discuss how organizations can go on to thrive with some great innovation. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Mark, who will take us through this journey. And Mark, welcome. Great to have you on board. And I look forward to getting some really good insight. And I know you've got a great little demo around the recent acquisition around Babel Labs as well. We'll look forward to seeing how that plays out. But yeah, over to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Iqbal. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me today. So my name is Mark Needham. I work in global collaboration, sales and strategy for Cisco, focused on the future of work. Iqbal, can you see my slides up now, please? Thank you very much.
That's come up now.
So I think there's no need for me to labour about what's being going on in the world. I think everyone's pretty much bored of every newspaper article, every TV channel talking about COVID. But I think the only thing I would say is that COVID has become a huge catalyst for change, which has allowed the opportunity for many organisations to reinvestigate and invigorate things they did in the past, or maybe chose not to do in the past because they didn't feel it was right for their particular organisation. So what we see, if we look at the survey, which was provided by Fortune 500, they surveyed the 500 CEOs of the Fortune 500 members, pretty obvious. So what was the number one concern of the CEOs was how they could enable their employees to remain safe and be productively employed. So we're going to talk about that. Many organizations were already on a process around workplace transformation, and COVID is seeing that accelerate. And when it came to the question about when they felt 90% of their workforce would be going back to the office, there was a massive spread of answers. More than a quarter felt 90% of their employees would never, ever go back to the workplace. And the rest of the dates suggested spanned a number of different years. So this kind of hybrid working experience we have today, where some people are going to be at home, some people be in an office, some people elsewhere, we very much know is going to continue for the long term. So the way we talk about it, as Iqbal explained, is this concept of survive, revive, and thrive. And that's how we're going to structure the next 30 minutes. So when we talk about survival, roll our minds back to kind of February time for those of us in the UK, other dates for further afield, that people were in the office one day, then the next day the staff were told not to come in. So rightly so, all the IT teams and the leadership teams went, what do? We have all these different departments that are normally in the office together and they need to kind of do the work. And the first response was, well, we need them to be able to do meetings, which is a great place to start. And we were already the number one meeting provider pre-COVID, with 200 million unique business users per month. And now we've rocketed through to 550 million business users plus. So we have been a beneficiary in some respects of that growth by our strategic partnership with many organizations, and we've allowed them to survive through this process. But now we know this is going to be for the long term, it actually changes the game a bit, because it's not just about how you have meetings. It's about how you do your entire job from wherever you may be. So yes, there's going to be meetings. There's going to be messaging. You need to co-create. You need to make phone calls. You need to do team projects, and you need to be able to share documents between people wherever they may be. And equally, in almost everybody's role, you're not just doing this within your organization. There's going to be multiple people outside of your firewall that you need to be able to collaborate with. And you need to take that same collaboration experience, that same ability to grow your business in a way that's secure, whether the people you're collaborating with are within or outside of your organization. And the way we address that from our side of things is with Webex. So this is a single app which provides all of these workloads to the customer. The reason why hybrid on this slide is in bold is because that is hugely important. The hybrid nature of this platform means that wherever you are on your journey from on-prem to cloud, you can have a flavor of this experience, which still delivers these great outcomes. And what that also enables, because architecturally it's so innovative, is when you look at the total cost of ownership of these types of solution, more often than not, the largest cost is the audio cost tied to your meetings and the audio cost tied to your calling. And with the nature of our innovation, you can easily cut that in half, if not more, depending on how ambitious you want to be. So it makes sense from that perspective as well. And also, if you think about your workforce, everyone has different jobs. Everyone has different needs. So it's not actually one size fits all. You're going to have certain roles where they just need access to the messaging experience. Other roles where it could be the call-ins and meetings experience. Roles where they just need the meetings only, and people that need that full collaboration stack as all part of that clean experience. Now, when I talk about these four personas here, in my head, I'm more thinking knowledge workers. And but separate that, there is a particular type of knowledge worker that is hugely important, and that's the people that work within contact centers. So all of these people need to be able to deliver that same level of care and consideration for their customers from wherever they may be. And increasingly, those people are home. So the Webex contact center brings all these collaboration experiences into that contact center environment as well. So everybody within your organization can benefit and survive throughout this process. So when we look internally, we're already partway through our return to office program, but when we look at remote workers, we identified three types. Those with fixed spaces at home, which is what I am. So I converted my garden shed into an office. This is 4 foot wide and 10 foot long. And more importantly, it has a door that I can lock. You're going to have shared spaces at home where multiple members of the household have a dedicated space for work, but there's more than one person in there. And obviously that has an impact on the ambience and the noise cancellation requirements to allow them to be effective. And thirdly, you're going to have remote workers that move around their home, a bedroom, a kitchen, a lounge, whatever it may be. And obviously that slightly changes their experience needs as well. They need an experience that is all about mobility, it's mobile centric, and that noise cancellation and that ambience around them becomes increasingly important. But regardless of which one of these sounds like you still need that ubiquity of experience. You need the same feature set and the same ability to deliver outcomes wherever you are in these personas or wherever your home working environment may be. So one of the key elements of that, as I've mentioned, is the noise cancellation and the ambience. So Cisco recently announced our intent to acquire Babel Labs that has a huge piece of innovation which impacts this area, how it can remove background noise wherever you are. It works with all different languages globally, and compared to many other solutions out there, the processing is 100% local to your machine. So that meets every requirement for cloud security and every requirement around privacy. So I'm just going to ask the guys to run a short video to give you a taste of how effective this is.
Hey everybody, it's Dustin with the Cisco Webex Devices team, and I'm so excited to be joining you guys here at Cisilion Live to talk about our recent Babel Labs acquisition and give a demo to you. So one of the things that I want to talk about here is that, everybody's obviously working from home these days, and as you can hear in the background, it can provide some unique distractions to you while you're having your meetings. It could be a dog barking, or in my case, my family that is cheering me on because I'm doing such a great job at work. So a lot of things that can happen. And then even when you do return to work, you're going to have things like sitting outside your office and, there's construction going on nearby and you're hearing a drill or something going on. So what we want to do today is show you what Babel Labs is going to be able to do for you. And this is going to be at zero security risk to you. And this is 100% done locally on the device. So if we go back to, having a dog bark, perhaps maybe we can, make that a little bit better experience for you while you're in the office. Or, again, like the case of my family, if they're cheering me on, I can kind of help get rid of that to ensure that it's not going to be a distraction for everyone else that's on my call. And then finally, I'm back in the office. We got construction going on nearby. Well, I can continue to do my work without providing a distraction to the people that are on my call. So I hope you enjoyed this demo and hope you guys are having a great time. Thanks.
So as you can see, that's great innovation there. It will have a meaningful impact throughout this hybrid working style. Whether you're at home, whether you're in the office or in a move, that will be dramatically enhance the experience for the people you are collaborating with. Now, when you think about people with fixed spaces like myself, or at least people that spend the vast majority of the days in meetings, you need to think about providing enterprise-grade video endpoints to them for a number of reasons. One of which, it gives them a much more engaging experience when they're in a meeting. That's pretty obvious. The second of which is it helps you avoid hunched over laptop syndrome. So even pre-COVID, 80% plus of the UK workforce struggled from this, where they spend their days working like this. And that's just been magnified by everybody being at home, living off their laptops in suboptimal positions. And that has a dramatic impact on the health and well-being of your workforce. So it's really important to look at that where appropriate for your heavy meeting users. Also, when you look through pretty much any office window nowadays, most desks have two screens on. So people have got used to the habit of having two screens to work for. So not only does the video endpoint provide that ability when you're in a video meeting, but it's also your second screen and becomes that touch screen interface for your laptop. So you can have those more iterative, more creative elements of your working done at home rather than needing to be in an office to do that. And equally for people I mentioned who basically mobility, they float around their home wherever they may be working. We also have a smaller endpoint called a mini, which has a much nicer form factor for putting in your lounge. So taking that existing piece of glass you have where you normally watch TV and turn that into your rich meeting experience. So this really enables your staff to deliver that better outcome for you as an organization and have a better experience themselves while they are doing that. And the slides seem to have frozen slightly. So when we move on from this, obviously security is hugely important. So as well as being a leading collaboration vendor globally, Cisco also has a huge security business. So security cannot be an add-on to your collaboration experience, to your remote workers. It has to be built into the foundations of the product. When that is not the case, you just have to Google the outcome of that, and you'll see many examples of collaboration vendors having issues during this period due to a lack of focus on security. Now, equally outside of that collaboration experience, we're talking about how people do their entire roles from home. So there are key other elements they need to take into account. You need that multi-factor authentication to challenge your staff to prove they are who they are when they're accessing your corporate servers and your corporate tools. When they need to access confidential documents, they need that AnyConnect, that VPN into your workplace to access those in a secure way. They need to be protected when they're on the web. And also the last line of defense is how you protect their actual devices. And all of these elements from our Cisco security portfolio integrate tightly into Webex to give you that additional wrapper around it. Now, if we talk a bit about my personal home working experience. So what you see in this picture used to be my garden shed, 4 foot by 10 foot. This is why I am now. I have a pretty good setup at home. It's amazing. Also, when I'm at home, I've got the puppy in the garden. I can see my children whenever I want outside of school. And I am in total control over who I come in contact with. I'm not accidentally going to bump into somebody who's going to give me COVID. The only people I'm going to interface with are the people I choose to, and that is on my own terms. So the motivation for me to go back into an office is really, really small. Now, other people in Cisco do not necessarily pre-COVID have worked from home as much as I do. So we ran an internal survey to ask them how productive they felt. And you can see a huge portion actually feel they are more productive working remotely than when they were previously going into an office. So we know this works. And you may think, of course, Mark's going to have a great home working experience. I work for Cisco, our IT team basically give us everything. And there is an element of that in here. We do have access to some amazing tools, which you could have as well. But then if you look outside of Cisco, from the same Fortune 500 survey, there is an open question about what has the crisis taught these CEOs? And one of the top answers was working from home works. This isn't unique to working for a tech company. Everybody can benefit from this. The image you see in the background of this slide is Chiswick Park. So my wife actually works at Chiswick Park, and she works for a sports agency. So totally different type of organization to where I work. If you look at it, Chiswick Park gives them an amazing experience. Everything you've ever heard about workplace transformation is here. You've got the lake, the waterfall, meeting pods scattered around it, a beach, a gym, restaurants, cafes, and the in-office space is stunning. That being said, when you look at their team, the people on the production side that actually have to go there, because that's where all their editing suite is, are obviously going to be going back 5 days a week. But the people who are not tied to their desks because they can work from anywhere, they do not want to go back 5 days a week. And in that case, obviously they're having that dialogue at the moment about how they can find that balance between people going back and not going back and allow their company to survive and continue to grow. So that leads us on to the revival element. So what we're going to start talking about here is kind of that office workplace re-entry in a bit more detail. But before we do that, Iqbal, tell me a bit about Cisilion's customers and how you've been helping them through the survival stage.
Yeah, I think we've spoken at length previously in previous sessions around how we've used the kind of free trials from Cisco around Webex to help a lot of the customers fast track that journey, and also as well as that, helping those users then adopt Webex across the board. And that's certainly where we've seen the kind of survival state. And as we kind of move into the next phase, as we go into revival, we're now looking at how users and organizations can start to benefit from that technology. So I'm really keen to hear about what revival means for Cisco and how your customers are benefiting from this. But just kind of before you go into that, guys, if you do have any questions on YouTube and LinkedIn, drop them in the comments, and we'll try and address them before we end the session today.
Thank you. So we'd love to take you a bit through what we're seeing from a revival perspective. So we have already started going back into offices ourselves. It started in APJ, then based on local conditions, that's rolling across the world. Take the UK as an example. So I took this from the BBC last week. If you look across all industries in the UK, you can see that the portion that are working remotely or already back at their normal place of work is pretty similar. So we know people have a desire to go back to work. And of course, you're going to have a variation between different industry sectors and where you are based in the country. But this movement is happening, and it just happen at the pace that's right for your location and your industry. Now, what we do know from speaking to our customers is that when people actually do want to return to the office, it's actually for different things. So people are not going back to do their head down work. They can do that from home, so why would they? When people do go back to the office, they're going back for the social side of things. They're going back for the richest type of collaboration workloads that they need to do. The brainstorming, the ideation, the iteration. That side of things is why they see a need for going back into an office. And when you look at what you need to do as organizationally, this is the kind of Cisco return to office framework. And clearly this applies to pretty much every organization in the world. You need to look at the legal position, medical guidance, government regulations, and your employee concerns. Now, when you look across this, you actually only have any control over one of these. The only element you can control as an organization is your employee concerns and how you listen to their physical, mental, and emotional needs as they look to occasionally go back to the office. So a little while back to our school days, we all have been taught Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if we remember, you start off with physiological, safety and security, then you go up the levels. And the whole concept of the hierarchy of needs is you cannot move off the lowest level, to the second level till you've completed the first level, and so forth as you go through the process. So if we take that methodology and apply that to return to office, this is what we're seeing. The first thing you need to do is make your employees feel safe and secure. Once and only once they feel safe and secure, you need to start thinking about how you can make the workplace so much better for them than when they're at home. And the final element, and this is when we start getting into the thrive element of the dialogue today, is about revisioning work. So using COVID as a catalyst to dramatically change things to get your organization to a much stronger place than they were even pre-COVID. So let's talk about that. So if you think about workplace design and all the things we've been speaking about over the last couple of years, many people would look at these statements and think that is the absolute opposite of what we hear in the government, what we expect is going to be like as you go back to an office. But the reality is many of these things we've been doing over the last few years, they still apply. And there's no need to do a dramatic overcorrect because you're not just in your office for the next 6 months, 1 year. You're going to be in that office and use that for 5 years, 10 years, however many years it may be. So there's no need to take a knee-jerk reaction today for something which could cost you in the longer term. So instead, what we're seeing from our customers is about how you take these things and make intelligent adaptations and accommodations based on the world we are in today. So here's a case in point. So some customers you'll speak to, and you have employees that do not like the open plan environment that many of us work within. And they think that when they go back to an office, what they're going to get is the image at the back, on the back left of this slide. They think they're going back to cubicle life because they think that makes them safe. Now, there are a few flaws in that plan. So I'm sat on one side of that cubicle. Iqbal, you're sat on the other side of the cubicle. If I want to collaborate with you, how do I do it?
You'd have to get up, go around, and have a chat with them. So it's not the most convenient thing to do. It'll be quicker to call them.
Exactly, and a great example. So a couple of things there. One, I could just call you or send you a message, and if I'm going to do that, I might as well be at home. Exactly. If I stand up and walk around the table to talk to you, then there goes social distancing. If I stand up and lean over the partition, I'm going to be breathing on you as I talk to you. So again, not great based on the guidance we're all being told about social distancing. So the reality is what you're actually going to see is desks more like what's in the foreground. So this is more of the adaptation that we're talking about. You're not in a cubicle, but you're in a desk with enough social distance along it to sit from your colleagues. And because you're there to collaborate, you can discuss across the desk. You can speak to people to one side of you, or just spin your chair around and speak to the person behind you. So even when you're outside of a meeting room, you can still do that collaboration, meet those collaboration needs without having to break any of those social distance guidelines. So this is what we're hearing. That's what you're going to see moving forwards. The next level of this is when we start thinking about people's movement as they go around the office. And that slide's frozen again. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to talk about this first. So, as I mentioned, our workforce has already started going back. Started in APJ based on local conditions, and then obviously gradually we're looking at that across the world. And the first thing everybody needs to happen before they're allowed back into the office is they need to be grounded into what to expect. So we run ongoing webinars before offices open up. And that goes through the adaptations you can expect to see in the workplace, the symptoms, the preventative measures, the things that we expect you to do as an employee to try and keep your colleagues safe. So everybody has this foundational knowledge before they even get near to an office. Thereafter, we've got an app we built where people self-certify that they've not been in contact with anybody with COVID symptoms in the previous 14 days. If they have, they're told not to come to the office. If they haven't, they're allowed to pass and come into the office. And then what happens is we look at how you can use that Cisco platform to reduce physical contact when you're in an office, but at the same time, bridge the needs of collaboration and that human contact to help people go about their day. So this is the first element of that. You need to build that trust and transparency. So whether you're in a meeting room with one of our devices or any other piece of glass in your office, what you'll have is the importance of that digital signage. And what this provides is dynamic data about the density threshold in that particular building, the percentage occupancy at the moment. So people, when they come onto this floor, they know they're within the correct boundaries and they know they're safe to go about their day. And the way that's managed is we set up the thresholds in our DNA Spaces solution, and then that's triggered via notifications into the signage or into the Webex app, where individuals can get the update on their particular location. So really simple, but really engaging and a great way to build that confidence and ensure you have that transparency with your employees. What we also look at in real time is the density monitoring of the organization. So this is a real floor from one of our offices in America, and this is clearly open at the moment. And what you see here, the colors indicate the density of people within this space. And if you look to the right-hand side, you'll see there's a big red dollop in the middle. Iqbal, do you want to have a guess at what that may be?
Well, if it's anything like our office, then that'll be the kitchen area where everybody's hanging out.
Excellent, good choice. Yeah. So that is where the coffee machine is. So when a facilities team sees this, they have a couple of decisions. They either need to enforce stricter social distancing in that particular location. That's one option. Or a second option would be, well, do we provide more coffee machines on the floor to make it easier for people to social distance and still have a minimal impact on their day? And then the next version of this, which we're exploring at the moment, is around how we can use all this data to help with track and trace. So if there is an incident, we can look at who else may have been in close proximity to that particular individual, so we can help minimize the impact on the wider workforce and the wider population, wherever those offices may be. So that's something we're exploring for the next stages. When you look at an individual, these notifications need to be personalized as well. So again, you create the rules on and provide the data about what's going on in the office space. Then as I walk into the office, I could get, in this case, one of 3 alerts. The first alert would come to my app, my Webex app on my phone, and say, "Good morning, Mark, welcome to building 8. There has been an incident in this office in the last 30 days. Therefore, the cafeteria and the common areas are closed." But I can still go into that. I can still choose to go into that space, but I know why the restrictions are happening at that point in time. Transparency and good communication. The second option could be, "Good morning, Mark, welcome to this building. This building is actually over capacity, so please go find another building or go home." Clearly useful as well. And the third example here is, "Good morning, Mark, density threshold is fine. There have been no incidents on this particular site. So go about your day as you would do normally," making me feel safe and secure about what's happening in that space. Then we talk about what happens when you actually go into a meeting room when you're going to be collaborating. And the key element here is about how you can enable contactless collaboration. People do not want to touch things. So how this works. So many desks within an office will have a phone on. So clearly you don't actually touch the phone. So what happens with the Cisco headsets is you can go up to the docking station, you put the headset into the docking station, then it will automatically set up that phone to your preferences. So I could go around the office, dock in my headset, and when somebody phones me, it'll go to whatever phone I've just logged into. So I can go about my calls on my day without having to touch that device. And then when I walk away at the end of the day, it automatically resets that device for the next person to come and use it. When you look at a meeting room, again, this role of digital signage is hugely important. So on the screen, you've got the guidance about where you can sit in this space. Please do not use the Touch 10, which is the control panel on the table, and shows you how you can interact with this device via your phone or your tablet or your laptop. And the way that works is one of 4 options. So because all our devices have proximity pairing from the apps to the devices, it automatically pairs, so you can control the device from your laptop, your phone, your iPad without touching anything that's not yours. Clearly beneficial. The second element is they all support voice control. So you can just talk to the endpoint, "Okay, Webex, start my meeting," and off you go. And if I'm already in the space and it comes time to join a meeting, then a prompt would come up on the screen and it would proactively ask me if I'd like to join my meeting. And finally, the same applies when I'm trying to book rooms. So on-demand voice reservations to book that space, extend the booking, or book it for another day when I may be coming back into the office. Really easy, seamless experiences that make me safe and secure. The same devices all provide the option for people counting. So the device knows there's 3 people in this room. It also knows the density threshold of this room is 2. So it will alert us that there are too many people in this room. Can one of you leave? Or if you choose to, it can notify you to where there may be a bigger room that's available at that point in time. Same kind of notifications workflow when it comes to the sanitization of the space. So alerts on the screen of when the room was last cleaned. It can be used as a trigger to the cleaning team to come and clean that space before the next meeting happens. Again, keeping people healthy. And then we're about to come on to how we make that workplace work that much harder. But from what we've just gone through there, Iqbal, would that make you feel safe and secure in an office environment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the fundamentals here, isn't it? It's, you know, there may be a reason or not a reason to come back to the office, but as a user, you'd like to think that when you do go back, your employer has done everything possible to make that environment as safe as they can. I know from my experience more recently with some of the customers we're working with, they are looking to redefine their workplace environment, and we're kind of starting with the meeting room. That's something that we've gone in and done, where, you know, as you've described, the touchless experiences, being able to proactively join your meetings. These are the kind of things that customers are already benefiting from today. So yeah, there's you know, as long as employers demonstrate that they're doing everything they can, it certainly as a user you feel much safer going back to the workplace.
Fantastic. So when we talk about the workplace working much harder to build that trust, so what do I mean? So everybody's been living this explosion of video for many years now. There's this boom of huddle rooms. People have been on video calls from home. So we know that video is here to stay. And we also know that every single meeting, even within an office, moving forward, there are going to be remote participants. So all the shapes and sizes of rooms you have within your office need to have a fully fledged video experience that's part of that consistent platform. So it's the same experience as people have at home when they're doing their entire job as it is when they come into the office. So if you go back to post-Christmas, we would have been in a meeting room like this. So there's 14 people in this picture. And clearly 14 people cannot be in this meeting room today. I mean, you need to have a table that's 14 meters by 2 meters as a minimum. And I've been in a lot of meeting rooms and I can only think of a very small number that are that big. So how's it actually going to work in real life? In real life, what happened today is those 14 people, even if they're in the office, would be split across multiple smaller meeting rooms, and you will have people remotely dial into that meeting. You're still going to get to the same outcomes, but you're doing it in a secure way that still gives you that richness of being in that same room together. What we're also hearing from lots of customers is they want to take video into the open plan. So we're doing some work with Salamander Designs around how we can have mobile stands for the endpoints, and you can move them around the office kind of as you need to based on the requirements of a particular meeting at any point in time. And then if you just move that slide forward, you'll talk about the richest experience. So we mentioned the social side of when people go into an office, but the richest collaboration is that brainstorming, that iteration, that innovation, which is the heartbeat of your organization. And that's what we're seeing in this image here. So within the main space in the shots, you have an interactive whiteboard where the lady's kind of brainstorming on there. You have 2 other people in the room that are socially distanced, which have access via their own devices to iterate on that whiteboard and add comments. And then that board's paired with the video endpoint. So the 3 people in the far end room have a really rich experience to see what's happening on the board, and they can contribute their own ideas either verbally or via the app themselves, and that'll be replicated on the board in the actual room. So it's a really rich collaborative experience, and it's these kind of reasons why people are going to be getting into the office moving forwards. So we're just going to move on to the Thrive side of things now as you look to wrap up this. So when we talk about thriving, what we're talking about here is how you can use COVID as a catalyst for positive change to really allow your organization to be successful for the long term. So if we talk about the softer side of thriving first, so everyone now knows working from home can be hugely productive. Okay, so why don't we take that and apply it to your recruitment strategy? We know there is a shortage of applicants of the required quality in the workplace at the moment. So you can broaden your recruitment pool by living in the knowledge that they will not need to come to the office every single day. Case in point, we recently just hired 3 marketing managers to work on the team. And if you look on the screen here to see where the location is, it says anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Europe. They can be effective and drive great value for us as an organization, even if they're dispersed across multiple locations. And in fact, in my personal experience in Cisco, I've worked here almost 6 years now. Not once have I had a manager who's in the same continent as me. And that's had no impact on my ability to add value. The second element is there is also a global skills gap coming. So there are 4 generations in the workforce for the first time. And the baby boomers, so the oldest of those 4 generations, they're going into retirement at a massive rate. And there's a massive concern that as they leave, the next layer of leaders in organizations haven't yet got that IP to continue to thrive and continue to help the business grow. So what you do here is you can support them with reduced and flexible working. So as an organization, you have that consistent access to this IP. So Cisco now provides to support 4-day working weeks, but it's not a big shift to go to a 3-day, a 2-day, a 1-day, or even having this rich knowledge on call. So as a leader, if you're stuck on a particular problem, you could quickly just contact them via Webex, get the answer you need, and move that project forward to allow you to continue to thrive. And now we think about the technology side again. So we've spoken so far about the role of technology and Webex when it comes to connecting people. But to allow organizations to thrive, you need to connect people with data, with process and workflows in a really consistent way. And this is also what Webex allows you to do. It's more than just being a collaboration platform. So if we look at this scenario here, there are a whole host of different types of integrations you can bring to Webex to allow you to optimize your business. But at a more basic level, you can have Webex app tabs. These can be configured within a couple of hours, and you can just have a web page integrated into the experience to drive whatever that project is forward. Then you can have your chatbots as the next level up, integrated into Webex for helps, procurement, whatever it may be. That can go as part of the experience. Then you go up in levels of sophistication to buttons and cards, really rich native integrations where things are really important. So we're a massive Office 365 user, and we have that entire experience within Webex. So we never need to leave our collaboration tool to work on documents and use those sources. Then you can take the Webex experience as a widget or a component and put it into something else. So we use Salesforce.com. I'm sure many of you on this call use the same. And we have the calling elements and the video elements of the Webex experience embedded into Salesforce. So for people whose role means they live in that interface, they never need to leave it to do their jobs. And at the top end, we have the kind of bespoke kind of package solutions where you can take the collaboration experience and put it into the heart of manufacturing tools and wearable glass for when people are on site, on an oil rig, whatever it may be. And across this spectrum, you can go from setting these up within a couple of hours, and that's a nice thing to improve a workflow, or you can go to the truly immersive side of things with a package solution, and that drives the maximum value, but clearly takes a little bit more time to do that. So just as we get closer to wrapping up, an example of this in practice from one of our customers. So this is a European bank. And what they've done, they've integrated their CRM and Webex using the open APIs. They use Google AI to determine when one of their customers has a high propensity to be open to a new offer. And when that would then trigger a Webex bot to generate a message to the customer with a proposal and all the documents into the customer space. The customer space is within the bank's consumer-facing app. The advisor aligned to that customer receives the same notification all the documents, and the customer, as I said, accesses that via the bank's app. What then happens is if the customer wants more information, they can get what they need via a chatbot. They can escalate to a video call and have that dialogue. And if they're happy, they can just go ahead and sign and they're ready to go. If they haven't done anything, a notification goes to the advisor to reach out and have that contact. Obviously, a direct outreach to the customer, then they can turn that into business. So this is just a really quick example of how you can allow your business to thrive by joining the data, the people, and the workflows together. And from the collaboration side, all these experiences are managed in the one place. This is the control hub. So all your collaborations are managed here. All your troubleshooting, your insights, your data, your transparency into what's going on within the office space, you can see within this single experience. So a great tool for IT to scale, where before they may have had 4 offices, now they may have 400 offices because every single member of their staff is based at home. And the final call out I'd like to make is what I'd like you to do with Cisilion and how we can help you moving forwards. Think of these questions as whatever your job title is. I want to, whatever your process is, so I can, whatever the outcome is you're trying to strive to. Speak to Cisilion based on this, and they can help you make this a reality and help you survive, revive, and thrive as you move forwards. So in conclusion, 6 things to think about. The behavioral changes from COVID will long outlive the crisis. That said, you do not need to overcorrect. It's about accommodations and adaptations. Your physical office will still remain a destination for collaboration, but it's just going to have to work that much harder to get people out of their homes to go there. And that's why you really need to blend that physical and virtual world and just rethink what's possible. The opportunities are endless with Webex, with Cisilion, and with how we can link together all your processes to allow you as an organization to really thrive and move forward positively. And with that, Iqbal, I believe we're going to take some questions.
Yeah, we'll have a look at the questions. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's a great session there, Mark. Really interesting stuff. I think the 1 day a week is the one that kind of stands out the most. Actually, for me, it'll be nice to be able to reduce your working week. As you kind of move into retirement, I think that's now becoming a reality and can suit lots of people. So lots of interesting stuff there. Lots of positive comments coming in around Babel Labs. The demo that you've just shown there was really good, and some real good insight into what's going on in the industry today. One of the questions Craig's just brought up is in summary, what pre-COVID, lots of organizations implemented multiple tools to do similar things. I have a different IM tool, VoIP phones, have different legacy meeting room tech, and post-COVID they've kind of rushed into acquiring lots of different types of technologies. I mean, Webex is one of them, but there's lots of others out there, like Zoom, for example. The problem now, most of these organizations, that what they're facing is they've now ended up with disparate systems. Some users are using Zoom, others are using Webex, some on Microsoft Teams, and it's a real old mess. And those are the kind of conversation that I'm certainly having with lots of my customers today. So I don't know what your thoughts are around what Cisco can help to achieve best practice. I think a lot of what you've talked about addresses that issue. The Webex unified app will certainly solve most of those problems from the conversations that I'm having with customers. But yeah, I mean, did you have any thoughts, Mark, on your end, how we can, I guess, help customers approach that challenge?
Sure. So I think in the first instance, what in this scenario, what they've done is what everyone's done. Everyone needs to go home. Oh my God, what do we do? Let's grab this, grab that, and just hope we can get through it. So now it's time to make a considered decision for the long term. So they could keep that experience, but the problem then is it's expensive. It's really hard for IT to manage, and you're not actually going to be able to get to the thriving stage because the entire experience is bitty. So you really need to look for that single platform that can do all these things for you. And clearly, I'm going to say Cisco is the best for that, because some of the other vendors you mentioned, Zoom, for example, do not have that full enterprise experience across all the workloads that are needed. Other ones like Microsoft, for example, they're fine internally, but that breaks the minute you have to work with people outside of your organization. But that said, our guidance to many customers is have Microsoft Office 365 and integrate Webex alongside those, and you'll get the best total cost of ownership by using them that way, and you'll get a really great experience for your staff. And this is now the time to think very clearly about the next kind of 5 years, because now we've got through the initial shock to the system. You can make considered decisions. They need to speak to you to help understand what those disparate systems are, how it can bring together, and how we can help get them to a thriving stage.
Yeah, no, great response there. And I think also one of the important thing also is looking at existing investments, because naturally, many customers are tied to contracts and things like that. And this is where we can come and help identify what those costs are and try and build a TCO against what the overall cost will be to go to a more of a consolidated approach. So just kind of moving on to the next question, Nick Patel has asked, are Cisco looking at leveraging tech people already? I think the question seems to indicate whether Cisco are leveraging other devices, other hardware that users at home can leverage, like game consoles, smart TVs, Chromecast, things like that. I know there's the Facebook portal, for example, that can be used for WebEx, but I don't know, Mark, if you have any thoughts on that.
So, I mean, it's probably the best. This is a deep question for the team in Oslo in the BU. So they constantly having dialogues. We have partnerships with LG. We have partnerships with Samsung. We're trying to do some really interactive stuff with those guys. So if we go back to February time, we announced with Samsung how you can use their touch screens with our video endpoints for basically a DIY interactive whiteboard, and we've seen good traction there. In one of the slides I shared was one of my colleagues' home office, where he just had one of our video endpoints on the TV in his lounge, because that's the only place he has to work. So we can do those kind of partnerships. When it comes to things like Chromecast, I think the proximity element we talk about is so innovative, and there's so many layers of AI and machine learning that are tied into it. My guidance would be, well, that's not something you buy. It's just part of the experience anyway. So there's all these really advanced things that you just get when you use WebEx as a platform and you use the WebEx solutions. So my guidance would be to look at where there are other things you're paying for, which are a duplicate of what is embedded into WebEx or our devices anyway. And that's where you can make some really significant savings by not double paying for something which is already included in the core product from Cisco.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and I think if you flip it the other way, from I guess when an organization is managing these systems, you will move into issues if users are leveraging their own hardware to run enterprise solutions. And this is where I think Cisco are really good, because they're not just delivering the application in the cloud, but there's a device associated with it, so that we can wrap a support around that whole service and guarantee the level of service the end user gets. And that goes all the way from headsets down to infrastructure. Cisco have all of those bits covered. And on the headset part, as we said prior to this session, anybody who's registered for this event will be going into a prize draw this week, and we'll be announcing the winners for whoever's registered. They'll find out next week if they are lucky enough to receive the 730 headset. But yeah, it just kind of ties well into that question. There's another question that I'm asked quite regularly. It can be quite contentious. Is what Cisco's do Cisco still have a right to play in this industry? And when you look at where Cisco come from, such rich collaboration history like ours, we've been one of the early adopters in terms of becoming a partner in being able to help customers down this journey. And my kind of answer to them is, when you look at the figures, as you said, WebEx has grown exponentially over the last few months, and that just shows how well it's been adopted. I recently saw a blog around Cisco selling their 100 millionth endpoint. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that many people, this is a business service, not for the consumer, yet somehow Cisco have managed to sell 100 million endpoints, and that is amazing in itself. But yeah, I guess in summary, just to close off, from your point, how relevant is Cisco to this industry and modern workplace? I know a lot of what you've said covers that off, but yeah, if you have any comments around that, would be much appreciated.
No, sure. So there's two elements of my answer to that question. So you talk about the credibility of Cisco as a platform. So you look at a headline, it says Vendor X has seen a 30x growth of their users during COVID. And they have, because they had such a small number of people using it in the first place. When you start off with a user base of 200 million business users, a 30x increase on 200 million users covers pretty much everyone in the world. So clearly we're not going to get a 30x on our user base, but to go from 200 million to not far off 600 million during COVID shows how trusted we are. And when you look at the most secure institutions globally, they will choose to use Cisco. So from a collaboration workload perspective, there's 100%, we are the leader. We have been for a long time. And the innovation that's coming, especially with, we just hired Shitu from Box, and his ideas are incredible. So we're definitely the horse that's going to win the long-term race. Now, the other side of that question is when we talk about returning to office and the workplace story, we've spoken a lot about people, so collaborations are centered on the people side of things. But Cisco is the largest networking vendor, the switching, the routing, the data center, the security vendor. And actually, when you look at a full transformation of your office, your workflows and your work styles, you need solutions across that entire breadth to get your organization where it needs to be. And they also need to be designed to work together. So again, it comes back into this story of by the tools working together really well, you get a lower total cost of ownership, you'll get a better outcome for your organization, your business will perform that much more better and grow that much more successfully than using a hodgepodge of kind of substandard solution A here, solution B here, solution C here. And that's really kind of why we have been successful and why so many of the most critical governments, hospitals, educators, businesses globally of all shapes and sizes continually turn to Cisco.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to wrap up now. I could probably spend the whole day talking to you about this, but I need to respect the time of our viewers. Really appreciate everybody joining and listening in. Hopefully you've enjoyed that and it's been very insightful. Please do get in touch if there's anything there that you find useful where we can help you to really bring the future of work to life. You know, we're here to help and we'll make that happen. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. As I said, next week we'll also be announcing the winners for those that have registered for this event, who will get the Cisco 730 headset. And Mark, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us and run through that as well as you have. And I look forward to seeing you and everybody soon again. Thanks.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.